Alright, so what's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Now today we're going to be talking about the two brand new perks in Warzone as promised as of the Season 5 update. Now these two perks are the first Warzone exclusive perks that we've ever seen. Obviously they wasn't added into Modern Warfare because they wouldn't really work, but today we're going to be talking about what they do, how they work, and also my thoughts and opinions on not just these perks. We've had some perks changed, and also we'll have a little discussion about the perk balance overall in the game now. But just before we get started, if you are new around here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I have a good amount of content planned for the Season 5 launch. I want to talk about the new assault rifle. I'll make a video on the new SMG. I also want to make some Warzone videos more dedicated to the weapons once again. There wasn't really much in terms of weapon balancing in this update, which I was kind of disappointed about, but I guess the balance is in a healthy state, I suppose. They just kind of left it alone. I don't want to say I'm going to be making like a ton of videos over the next week or so, because I'm supposed to be going away on the Sunday for about 5 days. So I'm going to be making some videos between now and then that I'm going to upload between now and then, but I'm also going to make some that are going to be uploaded in that time way, so I'm kind of like ahead of schedule. But if you don't want to miss any of those videos, make sure to subscribe, you know, leave a like on this video if you enjoy, and with all out of the way, we're just going to get right into the video. So the first perk we're going to be talking about today is Tempered. This is in the perk 2 slot, and essentially what this does, if we look at the description here, it says refill armor plates to full with 2 plates instead of 3. Equipping this perk fully restores armor, which I don't think actually works, but we'll ignore that. So basically what this means, each plate is worth 75 HP instead of the standard 50, which means you only get to use 2 plates, which basically cuts down your plate up time by 33%, your plate usage by 33%, and that basically means you can plate up to 4 times with an armor satchel as opposed to the normal 2 2/3. My brief opinion on this perk, I think it's great for aggressive players. Obviously you can plate up a lot quicker, you can get into the action a lot quicker. Mainly good for Rebirth, I would say, because that's when most of the fast-paced action is going to be happening. I'd imagine good for Verdansk as well, for the people who like to push people very hard and have a very aggressive playstyle. I personally, I'm in love with this perk, but, you know, we'll get into in-depth details a little bit later on. The second perk of today is Combat Scout. This is in the perk 3 slot. And if you take a look at the description here, damaging an enemy briefly highlights them for you and marks them for the entire squad. So if you think about a snapshot grenade, that is the effect that shooting someone has with this perk, and it also does an auto ping for your entire squad. So it's like if you press LB or up on the D-pad or whatever it is for you to ping, it's basically a live ping on them. It does it automatically when you shoot. If I was to talk about my brief thoughts on this, I don't think it's all that game-changing, but I've seen a lot of people say it is at the same time. We'll get more in-depth later on. I just want to say I don't think this is going to be changing the meta. I don't think many people are going to be swapping from Amped, which is the other main perk, but I think some people will use this. I think this will be definitely in the mix, if that makes sense. I think people will be using this. So let's start off with talking about Tempered. Now, like I said, this is possibly my new favorite perk for perk 2 in the game. If I'm not using Overkill, which you can get away with if you use the Psychov, then I'm using Tempered, because I'm a Rebirth player, if you guys don't know. Obviously, the gameplay is all Rebirth. So this perk is actually just perfect because it gets you in the action quicker. It's so useful if you're fighting multiple people at like different breaks, if you know what I mean. So let's say you just fight 2 people, you kill them, you have to plate up, you get pushed by someone else, you have to get pushed by someone else, you have to keep plating up. This perk is so useful for that. It's honestly insane. It's just so useful for Rebirth when you have so many people pushing you in, so many gunfights. Verdansk, I don't think this will be as used because obviously Ghost exists, Overkill, maybe even High Alert now, which we'll talk about later in the video. I don't see Tempered being used as much because when it's a lot more of a slow-paced game and you have your sort of individual engagements, so they just kind of like have breaks, like good breaks in between, this perk I don't really think will be useful. But for Rebirth, when there's just constant action, this is a great introduction to the game, and it definitely has me like using it. I use it a lot over Overkill. Obviously it is only day 1 of the update, so we'll see if this stands the test of time, but I just think this is a game changer of a perk. I think a lot more people will be using this in Rebirth as opposed to Verdansk, like I said. But for me personally, I like using the Psychov, so I can get away with using Tempered easily. It's just an added bonus, basically. And there's also the added bonus, if you go ahead and grab a second loadout, you can have Tempered and Overkill, basically, which is just incredible. Honestly, that is like the best setup you could have, in my opinion. Unless you take something like High Alert. I don't think Ghost is as useful in Rebirth, but High Alert is definitely a contender for perk 2 this season as well. So the second perk, which is in the perk 3 slot, is Combat Scout. Now, a lot of people have been talking about how broken this is, and I just don't think it's broken per se. I do see some scenarios where this will be really powerful, mainly because of that ping. You know, that stays active for like a good 2-3 seconds, something like that. And I can see why in certain situations people would be, let's say, pissed off about being killed against this, because you get pinged for a good amount of time, and that could result in your death. But in my opinion, I just don't think it's insanely overpowered. I think this perk is going to be more so used in Verdansk, mainly just because of, once again, how sort of slow-paced the nature is of Verdansk. Intel, I feel, is a lot more important in Verdansk as opposed to Rebirth. Rebirth is a lot more of a fuckfest, I would say. Verdansk is a lot more, like, Intel-based, and, you know, you can outsmart your enemy a lot easier in Verdansk as opposed to Rebirth, so I think this would be more useful in that regard. However, I don't think it's not useful in Rebirth. Obviously, there's going to be... This is a very situational perk, in my opinion. I feel like there's going to be the odd scenario. Let's say you've just killed 3 people. You're hunting down the last guy in Rebirth before he gets the Resurgence thing off. You might... You know, this ping might literally help you track him and kill him before he gets the Rebirth. Whereas if you didn't, he might get away. He might hide. You know, his team could Rebirth, and they could end up killing you, in theory. So... I would say this is a very situational perk. I think this would be great for one person, like one designated person to have on the team. Maybe have an intel guy. Maybe have someone who takes a heartbeat sensor and a combat scout perk. And you could honestly, you'd just be Mr. Intel, basically. I think that's a great idea. But overall, I think this perk is a solid addition. But for me personally, I'm sticking with Amped. Now, let's talk about the changes for the other perks. So the 2 that I'm aware of is Coldblooded and the High Alert. So the first one is Coldblooded. This negates Combat Scout, so very self-explanatory. If someone's using Cold-Blooded, you can't get affected by Combat Scout. So if you think this perk 3 is very effective, you do have a direct counter, which is great. It is a bit unfortunate you can't use EOD, because that can help you at times. But you're only missing out on EOD. It's not like any of the perk ones are all that useful, really. So... if you want to use Cold-Blooded so you don't get affected by Combat Scout, there you go. The second perk change is High Alert, which is the one that people have been asking for a long time. Dead Silence players are completely audible. This is a direct counter to Dead Silence. It's like they're not even using it, actually. So, I would say this is, once again, a contender for perk 2. Some people might prefer to use Ghost or Overkill or even Tempered over this, or maybe even Restock. I mean, perk 2 has a lot of good options now. Restock, Tempered, Overkill, High Alert, Ghost. That's a good selection of perks. They all, I would say, are equally as beneficial. It just kind of depends on the scenario for me. Now, finally, I want to have a quick discussion about the overall perk balance in Warzone. I feel like this update definitely has helped it, because we've got a direct counter to Dead Silence players, which I know a lot of people have been complaining about. And not only that, we have direct contenders for the perk 2 slot, obviously with Tempered now. This update has provided 2 direct counters to Overkill and Ghost. Restock people might not think as much, but it's a very good perk for playing aggressively, I think. So the perk 2 slot has a good, healthy amount of selection to it. I wish I could say the same for perk 1 and perk 3. I mean, perk 1 is literally just Cold-Blooded and EOD now. You could maybe take double time. Quick Fix, I'm pretty sure, is just automatically on you anyway. Like, as soon as you finish someone, your health instantly regenerates. I might be chatting shit about that. Kill Chain is pretty much useless. Scavenger is pretty much useless. Double Time, I did just say you could use it, but let's be honest, who uses Double Time? So, the perk 1 slot really needs to be looked at. I think perk 2 is good now. I would say the same for perk 3. Battle Hardened needs a good buff. Battle Hardened either needs a buff or stuns need a nerf. It's just that simple, to be honest. I don't really know what other perks can do. I mean, Tune Up reduces the revive time by 25%. I don't really know what else it could do to make it viable, really. Same for Shrapnel. I mean, Shrapnel is probably the most pointless one in the game, I'm not gonna lie. Basically, I think all it does is when you get your loadout, you get an extra amount of, or you get an extra lethal and tactical, but it doesn't do anything in Warzone. I mean, you can just pick one up anyway, or just use Restock. It's just, I think Raven need to look at the perk balance in the other 2 perk slots now. They've done a good job with perk 2, I won't lie. With perk 1 and 3, the variety isn't really there that much, so I think they need to review that. And I think they definitely can now that they've got the weapon balance sort of in line. They can focus on the perks now. But anyway, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. If you've enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe if you are new around here. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.